Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RationalInvestor.com's Weekend Frivolity. This is our Broiler Chicken Show. Buck, buck, buck. Happy, happy. Um, should be a few people that'll pop in here through the show. It's getting on 11 o'clock here on the West Coast. Of course, I have to be all ready to go to kick butt for Liam by 1 o'clock. So we got about an hour and a half or so to play with here. I'm sure I'll try and figure out something to talk to you guys about. I don't know. We have the school programs just doing its thing, marching away. So as a result, what I would like to do is spend time answering questions that the level oneers might have. And I do notice that there seems to be a redundancy in the questions about the screeners and stuff. So my hunch is we're probably going to have a question or two about that and the breadth indicator. But also, too, we might have some questions from the level twoers, level threeers. But I think we'll just wait to attack all that kind of stuff till after they're done. Graham is sort of going 100 miles an hour, and he started at about 8:30 this morning. So they've been going for about 2-3 hours now anyway. So sure is a lot of information to cover. But well, they're doing their thing. And it's great to see just yet another generation of TRI educated participants heading out into the market doing their thing. And also too, what I really love to see is the next generation. They're coming up and they're starting to get into their sort of rhythm. Some of the professionals going off and getting funded by prop firms and stuff like that. So it's really cool to just see generation after generation. All the little birds all sort of grow up and eventually leave the nest. Today being this is kind of weird. I don't know whether it's this is such an odd environment that we're in right now. I get the distinct impression that there is a concerted effort, and I don't know whether it's conscious or subconscious, concerted effort to destroy a lot of the icons and the iconography, if that is such a word, of the previous cycle. And this today, Sunday, and I don't know why they decided to move it to the middle of February. I mean, it's so cold if they ever play in outdoor stadiums. But I remember there was a Super Bowl, I guess, about 5-10 years ago that Peyton Manning played in, and he's a boy from the South. He does not play well in winter weather, and I think they had to play in like New York City in the middle of February, and it was almost laughable watching him trying to play football in that. And of course, they got destroyed. But anyway, that's here nor there. What I would say is I even noticed, like, on some social media, and I've had interactions with people now, even locally here in Vancouver, where for some reason people have just decided that it's in their right to just openly criticize somebody for complaining about shitty service at a fast food restaurant. Like, it's actually I'm supposed to accept shitty service. That's the way it's supposed to be now. Like, what? Fucking screwed up. But one thing I noticed is that I'm hearing a lot of sort of trying to knock this Super Bowl thing down and almost even change it, like the iconography. And people weren't even allowed to use the word Super Bowl. Now, I don't know whether it's because of threatened lawsuits because of using the term, or whether it's some sort of social media movement, another one of these sort of iconography destruction sort of sentiment movement. I don't know. Anyway, today is supposed to be Super Bowl Sunday. Here we are. So I don't necessarily think that the Super Bowl and the football game and all that really has a hell of a lot to do with the market. It used to be years and years and years ago, and this is sort of like a history lesson for all of you. Years and years and years ago, they had sort of two separate parts of the American football sort of league, if you will, the professional league, and then they had sort of like the old established teams that had long history of playing against each other, and then this sort of new economy, new established teams. And that was sort of the NFC versus the AFC. And a lot of the AFC teams were sort of like new upstart franchises and all that. So because of that, actually, it was a really cool sort of metric, and they used to call it the Super Bowl indicator. That if the new upstart teams won, then actually it was sort of an attack on the establishment, if you will, and that usually pretended that things weren't going to go very well in the capitalist arena. But if the NFC teams, the old established team won, then it's business as usual. Good old fashioned American capitalism. Anyway, that's kind of how the story went. I'm sure there was other things going on there as well. But anyway, then I think about the mid '90s or so, they really shuffled. Whole bunch of teams moved from AFC to NFC, and all the sorts of changes to the league, and that Super Bowl indicator started to kind of fall apart. But I remember years and years and years, we used to follow the Super Bowl indicator religiously to tell us what was going to happen for the rest of the year. I don't think it's been that accurate of late. And actually, like a guy like Mr. Brady and the New England Patriots just blowing that theory out of the water with them constantly winning, and yet the stock market still went up. So anyway, there you go. So today is supposed to be Super Bowl Sunday. And I think the big sort of driver here, and if you're going to say news and stuff, what's driving the market? It's more like I don't know whether the football game itself is actually that significant. It's ironic that two sort of teams that don't have huge sort of cult followings. The LA Rams, I think their team is called now, but I don't know. Maybe they've changed their names. When I was growing up, and I used to live in LA, actually, they were the Anaheim Rams. They were the California Rams. I think they went by the name Los Angeles Rams, but they actually played out of Orange County. And the LA football team at that point was the LA Raiders, and they played out of USC Coliseum. And you used to go to LA Raiders games and watch the gang fights in the stands because LA Coliseum is right in the middle of a challenging neighborhood. In fact, it's funny. Andrew Reza and I, along with Kavarkinator, we all shared an Airbnb down in that neighborhood, and that was an interesting experience. Definitely eye-opening. Anyway, so I'm not quite sure how the LA Rams how they represent. In fact, actually, we were joking on the site recently. The LA Rams actually were the St. Louis Rams. And just out of nowhere, they decided to pick up and move back to LA, which I always thought was fascinating. I'm sure there was some politics involved in all that. And I think there's the Chargers now. Yeah, the Chargers used to be in San Diego, and I think they moved up to LA now, or maybe they're gone completely. I don't know. I think the Raiders now are in Las Vegas, so it just goes to show, man, everything's changed in that football league. So I don't even know that we can use Super Bowl indicator stuff because all the pieces are moving around, and none of the conferences are the same as they used to be, except for maybe like the NFC North and stuff. They stay pretty consistent. Anyway, if you're a football fan, sure, all that makes sense. Hey, how about those Buffalo Bills? Damn, those Buffalo Bills. I was pretty impressed. I used to be a Bills fan. One of my favorite memories of my entire life was going to Buffalo Bills football game with JoJo and us cheering on the Bills playing against. Then it was Pretty Boy Blondie. What was his name? Boomer Esiason. He was playing for the Jets at that point. So we all hated him. Boo, hiss, hiss, boo. Anyway, I guess the point being that today is supposed to be all sort of America Football League game day. And it's kind of funny, of course, the Americans, they're so myopic, right? They call them the World Championship. Of course, nobody else in the world plays this game. So I always find that so amusing about the Americans. It's such a great analogy of the American psyche. World champions. Nobody else plays your game. Well, it doesn't matter. We're still world champs. So point, I think, for us, broader market wise, I don't think it has that much of a significance. But with regard to crypto, actually, there is a bit of a spin to this, which is kind of amusing in that I think probably the halftime show is probably more significant for the crypto audience and those that are crypto oriented, because if I get the message correctly, I think that this concept of NFTs is actually a huge future for crypto. And, the fact that these people have gotten so stinking wealthy buying these NFT icons as sort of like a first use case scenario of the NFT and the technology behind it, I think it's basically it is the future of the music industry. Makes sense to me. So as a result, I think that I think there's a consortium of people that are doing the music for the halftime show of the Super Bowl, and I think there's going to be a big sort of NFT push out of all of this. Now, does that actually translate into actual buying in the marketplace? It doesn't look like it, folks. I'm sorry, it just doesn't look like it. But I do think it is an interesting catalyst going forward. And if anything, we have a really, really negative backdrop facing us, folks. I mean, let's just call a spade a spade. In the stock market, we say there are always two engines that drive valuations: earnings and interest rates, or earnings and the cost of money to finance those earnings. It's really that simple. Our level oneers, I guess if you can watch this later on, we talked last week about fundamental analysis and fundamental models. And of course, a lot of those models are predicated on, what are your earnings and what's the path of cost of doing business going forward. And if interest rates are going up appreciably, what I'm really worried about are all the unicorn stories that don't have any earnings at all, or even, heaven forbid, are carrying a ton of debt. We just went through 40 years of falling interest rates and falling costs of borrowing money. Now we could very easily see 40 years of rising interest rates. And it's not going to be really ugly here at the beginning, but the people that are over leveraged here when rates are at historic lows and you're over leveraged now, well, when rates go back to normal, see you later, buddy. Market's going to wash you out super fast. So that's, I think, the backdrop here. It's not really like the broader market's going to be like, we're going to double-digit interest rates and, oh, my God, it's the end of the world and capitalism's over. That's not what's going to happen. If anything, as the capitalist machine comes back online, you're going to just see interest rates, quote unquote, normalize. I mean, that's just the way the game works. As DMAX say, if you don't know this and you're like, well, that's kind of an interesting perspective, never heard that before, maybe write it down in your journal. It's not a bad idea to have a journal going while Brian's blabbing away here. There's some guys actually have kept journals of just listening to me rant here, and they've built like whole courses on how to trade based on the journals. Great, Dal Moody. Yeah, you're going to be my case study for how to mine the Beamish and learn how to trade for no cost whatsoever. That's not a bad. I actually kind of like that, because a lot of people in this space are all about the shill. Yeah, Josh saying here, total journal nerd. Josh here is our I gotta say, man, Josh is if there ever was going to be a voice of TRI, actually Josh is perfect. It's absolutely perfect. So here's what Josh is telling all you guys. Yes, I'm a bit of a journaling nerd, but for good reason. Journaling is a transformative habit and has improved my life in so many ways. Keep journaling, people. Fucking amen. Rocket. And I would like, if anything, what I would like from you guys is we have this basic dashboard that if you sign up for the site, we would encourage you to get this all up and running, Brian's dashboard and the breadth and all that. And I would like to get these tools working a little bit crisper. So if anything, Josh, if you could maybe interact with Sjord and give him some thoughts and stuff you have about journaling and how we can make this a little more effective and more sort of useful tool for the noobs coming on board to get them more journaling. I'm totally down for that. I think that's it's always a good idea. So anyway, you people over on YouTube, you just journaling, right? Just watching the Broiler Chicken show. And I suppose we have a Wednesday show that we also do for free out there in YouTube land. All right. So what the hell was I talking about there? Got totally distracted. Always a good idea to journal. So if anything, what I like to do, and I'm going to try, all of you guys, man, I don't know what it is you did with Liam, but it's totally perfect. That sort of karmic message, the karmic wave. So everybody be thinking good karma for Liam this weekend. Actually, first time in probably about 5 years. I was actually able to take him to go and visit Mummy, because most times when I ask him, he's like, "No, Mummy, all done, Mummy, Mummy, no, Mummy." So we were actually able to go visit Mummy last week, which is a rarity. And I got a little bit of a video clip there on the YouTube feed, so you can get to know Liam a little bit if you go see my personal feed there on Facebook. Sorry, Facebook. Anyway. So keep that karmic wave going, man. Whatever it is, it's working, and thank goodness. Anything, Liam needs all of our best wishes. So what I've been trying to do recently is just maybe do like a little bit of a 5-10 minute overview of econs, 5-10 minute overview of news, 5-10 minute overview of the breadth, 5-10 minute overview, I suppose today, specifically on the weekends, we'll do crypto. And hopefully, right, we can kind of get into the habit of giving sort of like a 20-minute summary of what the hell's going on in the world. And people, maybe down the road, we can do things like the chapters and stuff of these videos. And then, as of minute 40, Beamish went off on some crazy tangent. So anyway. So what's going on in the world? Why don't we'll start the timer here, Chris. Let's see how I do. I got to keep practicing and getting better at this anyway. So anyway, hopefully we'll hear some chimes from the gods now to encourage me to move on to the next topic. So what's going on in the news? Obviously, a little bit of concern around Russia and Ukraine. I don't know who to even believe, who's right, who's wrong. We have the news headlines on here. Some people are going to interpret this as heavily biased one way or the other. I try to put everybody on here. And I see that it is interesting. Like on the right wing, they're talking about, hey, this is why we need Bitcoin. Fascinating. Talking about, people getting products. They're probably be bashing Pelosi, and I would imagine over here these guys will be bashing Trump. Yeah, there you go. So actually, the good part about it is they're pretty consistent, so that's good. I suppose a big part of our conversation here today is going to be Super Bowls, all that kind of stuff, and like I said, probably a good idea to keep an eye on who's advertising. Through the Super Bowl, who's wasting money. Maybe get the hell out of them, but also too, we might even, for anybody who's a site member, and maybe we can even do this tomorrow morning, is we'll just review who the players were that did advertise, and maybe look at their price charts and suggest whether maybe they're Wing out on heavy buying pressure, and it sounds like they got a half decent product, and hey, let's rock and roll, or holy crap, this is a disaster, let's get the hell out of here, and maybe even think about shorting it. So if you are going to watch the Super Bowl and you're going to do that stuff later on today, keep an eye on who advertised and who is mentioned, when they do their NFT shills and all that kind of stuff. Probably interesting to follow along those names. Interesting. And this is such a fascinating development. So I heard there was on my Twitter feed, my personal one, I was putting out interesting videos by sort of the right wing, if you will, in Canada. Because keep in mind, basically the liberal communists, socialists are in charge in Canada right now. But these guys, I think they're more sort of like right wing, kind of like individual rights, don't tell me what to do kind of thing. Whether you agree with them or not, I thought that, that's here nor there. All I'm going to say, I thought it was really interesting. She had an interesting line where you could be, you could be eating in a restaurant, fully vaccinated, fully sick, fully contagious, and eating in the restaurant, or you are not vaccinated, not sick, and not contagious, and you have to use the takeout window. So it's fascinating how it's not really a commentary on whether you're sick or not anymore, what's happening in our society. And ironically enough, in a weird sort of way, when times are good and everything's sort of flowing and money's flowing, then this sort of socialist utopia of Canada, it really looks great, and the healthcare system, everybody's getting healthcare and everything's awesome. But when the wheels fall off the bus and things start to get chaotic, this is where central planning and central government control, I'd say it. This is the reason why communism failed. This is the reason why that whole communist dream in Eastern Europe completely collapsed. Because when push comes to shove and the money isn't flowing and the money isn't easy, the whole damn thing starts to it almost like it cannibalizes on itself. And here's going to be a really good example where, I don't necessarily... Ironically enough, I do like the idea that if you're vaccinated, the odds of you dying from this sickness, I think, and actually needing hospitalization, I think, are less. So they're not really too concerned about you getting sick from this thing. What the sort of central planners are most concerned about is, are people going to overwhelm the healthcare system, and it gets to the point where people are literally dying outside in front of the hospitals. They can't even get treatment because they're dying, right? That's the absolute worst political imagery you can have possible. So I do find it interesting that the emphasis now is more on vaccination in my country and not on whether you're actually getting sick or not. I find that as an interesting commentary. And I thought it was kind of funny, like rubber meets the roads. There was a TRI site member that came to BC recently, and he wanted to take me out for dinner. And I drove downtown, and mysteriously, just out of nowhere, my cell phone just died. I have no idea why. It was perfectly charged up when I left home. And I couldn't hook up with him. But when I finally hooked up with him, I went back to my car and I plugged my phone in and just let it charge. It was the battery was completely dead. So I was like, let's just go to a local steakhouse and we'll have a steak. Walked up to the door and they said, proof of vaccination, please. And I was like, well, my cell phone's dead. Sorry, you're not getting in here. So it was fascinating that it didn't really matter whether I was sick or healthy. I have to now show this passport in my country, or I am literally a second class citizen. So it's already happened, and it's fascinating how a central planner country like Canada, how quickly it can dissolve, and how quickly all of your individual rights, when these governments take over, boom! I mean, freedom out the window. You better jump through the hurdles, and if you don't jump, well, life's going to be challenging. You use the takeout window, which is so ironic because the people that are in the restaurant with no masks on, my feeling is they're spreading this thing like crazy. So yeah, it's classic 1984, complete dystopian. And the problem is with these central planned responses is governments, and really this is a good lesson for all of you guys in trying to understand the Fed. If you fancy yourself a trader, most of the people are like, oh fuck, try and figure out the world through these crises. Last thing I've noticed this. The amount of actual bona fide quote unquote traders out in the world, it is falling off appreciably. Why? Because we're no longer in this silly magic internet money kind of world where everything is just guaranteed to go up. We're now in the money actually costs things, and no, there is no such thing as free money in this world. And a lot of this fluff now has to be unwound, and it could get very painful. The unwinding process of capitalism usually is ugly. So, anyway, I don't know whether that was that news, Chris? I don't know whether that was news or not. Anyway, jingle jingle. And I said we decided the guitar it was just too hard. Maybe something like Tinkling Bells or something might be good, but the problem is he might trigger a flashback in me. So be prepared. When I heard that the first time, I was like, "Whoa, that takes me back." So I might revert into like infant mode here. Anyway. So it's interesting how now my country has swung the other direction, and it might actually turn into a very sort of 1984 Big Brother, that kind of thing. The worst part about this is the pendulum swings back and forth. What I did post on my YouTube page, which I thought was really interesting, was I really like these two. These are two very just down to earth Canadians. I mean, if anything, I love this kind of image, right? There's no politics or anything. They're just a couple people. They're freezing their asses off. And you listen to them talk, they're very articulate. They're not really, pushing any agenda. And they're just kind of like, the people down on the streets, they're not jerks. And the media message that you're getting is completely false. It's kind of sad, really. So anyway, that's a further commentary of this. Oh man, it's interesting how Canada, of all places, if we around the world are talking about Canada, then there's something wrong with this world. Canada is supposed to be one of those countries that you don't ever talk about. They're just, they're the polite, quiet Canadians. They just do their thing. So if anything, that in itself, the fact that people are talking about Canada right now just shows how completely screwy this world is. Nuts. So even Associated Press, they're even covering this border issue. I hope to God it doesn't turn ugly. I will say, and I don't know whether this is news or econs or, where do we put celestial events in this, in the context of this conversation? I'm not quite sure. But, and I was over the top pleased. I heard from a site member, and one of the only people on the site who actually sort of bought into my EVU kind of idea. And he and I used to do tons of charts together, and I hadn't heard from him in a while. And I thought, man, maybe he fell off the face of the earth or passed away or something. But I did hear from him recently, so I was super pleased about that. So hopefully we'll start doing EVU charts again in the near term, because I don't know how the hell he did it, but he did it so cool. This is the only way I can seem to do these, and you can see Uranus is nowhere near these, so I don't know how he does it, but it's super cool how he did it. But anyway, I was listening to this gentleman. I thought he was an interesting guy. Again, my job here is not to say, Indian people are smarter than Canadian people are stupider than white people. I couldn't give a fuck about all that stuff. All I care is I want to do more of shit that works and less of shit that doesn't. So I was listening to this guy, and I got to say, he makes a pretty compelling case. And it's almost to the point where I'd actually like to go and maybe learn this language. I'd love to be able to go over there and just immerse myself in their world for like 5 years and just disappear. But I know you guys, none of you will let me do that. But it's fascinating. He's reading out of this, and I don't know what the names of these are. But in essence, the Indians have already been through this and it'd be interesting to see how many cycles their actual culture, like if you could actually go back and see what the truth is. But it's fascinating to listen to this guy and talking about the fact that we have a pretty tough situation here coming up. A year and a half, 2 years ago, we were all stressed about the Jupiter-Saturn cross. And now hopefully you guys all have a good appreciation of how significant an event that is to us silly humans. Thank heavens that's actually a bit of a past tense event. But, it's interesting as we're all sort of circling around the planet here. You'll notice that not all, but we have 5. We have Earth, Moon, Venus, Mars, and Saturn all lining up here in a nice little row. And then specifically this gentleman, he makes reference to the fact that Mars and Saturn are going to perfectly conjunct here. I think he said basically April 3rd and April 4th. And if there was ever a time to be worried about a war breaking out, it's right here, right? With Mars, the god of war and all that shit. He was basically saying that's probably if we can just get beyond this window and we're comfortably into April, then I think we can sort of calm down a little bit. But up until that event, just you want to go maybe, and I've seriously thought about this myself. Go and buy a couple cases of like tuna or something like that. Maybe just go buy a couple extra jugs of milk or something, maybe buy like a couple dozen eggs and boil up some eggs or something, or just, go and buy like a few frozen lasagnas and just have them in the freezer ready to go. Because I don't know how ugly is going to get, folks. Just be aware that if the shit was going to hit the fan, you see what's going on in Eastern Europe right now. And what I'm really worried about is I actually think that Eastern Europe is a decoy. I think it's a ruse. How ironic. A ruse from Russia. Why? Because this guy here, he actually says that according to sort of their scripts and all that, he says that this is all supposed to be about water. And it's all supposed to be about if there is a geopolitical event, about sort of the water element. So I ask myself, what's sort of going on in the world that's kind of watery, that maybe we're almost sort of being distracted about? Are there some big U.S. important ships floating around the South China Sea? Is there an island that China wouldn't mind sort of bitch slapping and getting them sort of back in line? And of course, seizing all their wonderful technology and their capital. Is there an Olympic event, ironically enough, talking about water? It's hilarious how the Greta should be shitting her fucking pants right now, except for the fact that I don't think Greta actually speaks for herself. I think she's a puppet. But if I understand correctly, the amount of water that and energy that the Chinese are expanding and expending for these Winter Olympics and creating all this false snow and this false sense of winter in Beijing. And if I understand correctly, it's almost laughable. It's like this ski competition is like being held in a fucking steel mill. I mean, it's incredible. You couldn't write this shit any better. But anyway, I'm not going to touch that shit. You all know what I think about the Chinese and their Olympics and their sports and their tennis players. So I won't go there. But the point being that this guy says it's all about water. So I wonder whether, like I said, get the Chinese, get these stupid Olympics, the genocide games over, and then look out on the other side of that event. And I'm a little bit worried if any of you Americans want to sort of mention to your leader that the people in the South China Sea should be on high alert. I think that might be a good idea. Shamba says it's proper water, Egypt and Ethiopia. Yeah, see, I'm not that smart about that kind of stuff. It just, all I'm saying is this is just it's what it struck a chord with me that, and I was talking with another person this morning about, the Chinese theoretically have ballistic missiles that could knock out these U.S. carriers. So wouldn't it be a massive turn in sort of human history if right out of nowhere the Chinese just totally nuked the American fleet down in the South China Sea and then just went in and swallowed up Taiwan? To me, that actually seems incredibly realistic in this kind of environment. And it's just interesting how when I heard this guy talking about water, I thought, okay. Because Ukraine, Russia, there's not a hell of a lot of water involved in that. And I just wonder, I got a funny feeling it's a decoy. But anyway, we'll see what happens. Only time will tell. Kind of a fun conversation there to have with you. Point here is, this is going to be a stressful period here, folks. Just my advice to all of you is just get through this. Now is not the time to want to be a hero. And what I'm worried about, of course, now we have this incredible super, I don't even know what you call it. It's like the ultimate secret weapon, if I've ever seen one. I mean, I knew that this was there. Of course, my 1980s website couldn't quite sort of bring it mainstream. Now, through JoJo and my deal with Spirit, that I would basically give myself to help this community and hopefully make a positive difference in this world. So I did my sort of side of the job. And the deal, I think, was that they brought Fjord into my life, and Fjord brings my crazy DI breadth concept into the 21st century. Now, all of you guys have this for the rest of your lives. I tell you, man, this is an incredibly powerful tool, and I think it really is a really cool secret weapon that we can use to totally kill the market. And, just in simplest terms, what are we supposed to think if we ever see the market smiling at us? I mean, you can see there's tons of smiles all over the map here. And then, of course, what I found fascinating was crypto, and I've said this repeatedly, is that I actually think crypto is a great leading indicator. So it actually started to break down actually a few days ago, even though things like the stock market just started to break down on Friday. What's scary here is we actually even have the utilities, the bond market down in the States breaking down as well. So we got the bonds heading lower. The bonds, this is supposed to be when they're perking up here, and they just look like sloppy as poop. So I don't really see any reprieve out of there. And if I understand correctly, I think the Fed's planning on having some sort of secret meeting coming up here Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And the conjecture is that they might actually even raise interest rates by 0.5% or something in between meetings here. So, hey, there's a backdrop for a party. And if anything, they probably should, right? Because they got to somehow get some sort of credibility back in the market's eyes. Right now, guys like Stanley Druckenmiller, listen to Beamish. Beamish is an idiot. But Stanley Druckenmiller, these are guys that, I consider them sort of my mentors and sort of leaders. I have all the people in the school listen to people like Linda Bradford-Rashke and Druckenmiller stuff written up in the Market Wizards books. And they kind of are looking at the U.S. government like it has absolutely no credibility in the market right now whatsoever, in the central banking cartel. I think they've completely lost the confidence of serious Wall Street influencers, which is very sad. You shouldn't let that happen. We've sort of talked about this in the past. There's an unwritten rule in this world. You do not fuck with the money supply of your country. What did the market do to Mr. Venezuela when he started fucking with the money supply of his country? What did the market do when Mr. Zimbabwe, what was that guy's name? Can't even remember his name. Yeah. When he started fucking with the money supply of his country, and we used to laugh at it. It used to be like, yeah, memes. Look at those silly third world people. They're so fucked. Well, guess what? I mean, since 2008, these people have gone and fucked with our money supply. So theoretically, we should have the same fate as Venezuela. We should have the same fate as Zimbabwe. There shouldn't be any difference. And oh, by the way, what do you see happening at the grocery store? Well, it's very similar. In fact, it was really interesting. We had one guy who was on the site years ago. He was in Venezuela. It was his country. And he was like, I'm staying here. I'm fighting to the bitter end. And everybody's like, oh, Jesus, get the hell out of there, man. Get out of there. Get out of there. But he stayed, and it was fascinating. He said that at one point, the currency is so worthless, but businessmen still wanted to do business. Mugabe, thank you. That they actually stopped doing business in currency, and they started doing business in motorcycles. I thought that was fascinating. And like literally, a motorcycle was like $1,000 bill. So if they wanted to do a deal for 50 grand, all right, it's 50 motorcycles. Do we have to get to that here? Maybe, may fucking be. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Mr. Trudeau there back east, he is a puppet of the banksters. And you've heard me say repeatedly that I believe that the banksters, they have an agenda here. And their agenda, it moves on an 80-year cycle. I'm not quite sure what the hell it is I'm looking at here. And I thought it was fascinating. Like first and foremost, they went and fucked with the inflation numbers all through the 1990s and 2000s. So we don't even really know what real is here. And actually, I was really impressed. There's a site member, Zoogie Sticks. I'm not quite sure what his real name is, but I think we all call him Mr. Zoogie or Mr. Sticks, one of the two. And he was saying here today, although I don't know where the chat room is, that there's actually a crypto project that's coming down the pike to try and create a CPI in crypto that's decentralized. So an index that the 1% can't fuck with to actually tell us what real price inflation is. And I thought that was just brilliant. That was so smart. So anyway, I'm going to be keeping an eye open for that. Of course, I have no idea what the hell I did with the page, but it's around here somewhere. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah. What I wanted to show you was I thought it was interesting that if you believe in this sort of 80-year sort of money cycle kind of thing, don't fuck with the money supply, but they do it once every 80 years. Klaus is the Great Reset. Basically, once every 80 years, the 1% goes and basically steals the wealth of the society. So that's what's happening right now, folks. Get used to it. I mean, this is what the world of bitches looks like. And we humans, especially if we're talking on YouTube and stuff like that, we are the 99%. We are the people that are being taken advantage of. Suppose that's half the reason why people believed in Bitcoin to begin with. And those people that did believe in Bitcoin and went in hard, well, theoretically, now they are the 1%. So it'd be really interesting to see how they act now. Would they like to see the central bankers and stuff rein this inflation in, try and reduce the money supply, make the value of the currency whole again, which ironically enough should bring the value of cryptocurrencies back down to earth? Or would they like to see more hyperinflation, keep raising the cost of production for Bitcoin and justifying the higher and higher prices? But at the same time, of course, loaf of bread's going to probably be $50 to $100. That's an interesting debate. And I don't think people in crypto really understood that if you had Bitcoin go to 100,000, go to $1 million, what does it mean for your standard of living? Does it mean that, you go to the grocery store and it's going to cost you $500 just to get a week's worth of food? It wouldn't surprise me. And we are even joking on this site that if you look at all of the food commodities, they all look like they're in rally mode. So you thought the prices were high now. Oh boy. I don't know where this ends, but it's kind of interesting if you think about that 80-year cycle. Then you just go back and you say, okay, well, what was going on 80 years ago? And I do find it interesting that the United States was being dragged into a global war that I think you could make an argument was manufactured by the 1%, to sort of destabilize the Soviet Union, which, of course, ironically enough, that was a strategy by the 1% to try and destabilize the Russian czar, who wouldn't play ball with the central bankers. So, they say the more history, the more the times change, the more everything stays exactly the same. So I do find that fascinating. I don't think anything's really changed here. So what I think happened was last cycle, of course, Great Depression. That was a situation where the politicians in charge at that time wouldn't play ball with the banksters. And so the bankster says, fine, okay, you don't play ball. We're going to drive your economy and the whole global economy into massive deflation, depression. And we're going to get it so bad that you will never get reelected in office again. Because politicians now, since the day of Herbert Hoover, politicians basically lie to the public. Absolutely guaranteed without a shadow of a doubt. In fact, they've been basically told, lie to the public or you will not be reelected. Take your choice. It's up to you. So I thought it's just interesting coming out of Mr. Hoover trying to keep the banksters honest, and the banksters going saying, fine, fuck you. We'll drive the economy into the ground. We're not going to take a loss on the bonds, or if we do take a loss on the bonds, everybody's going to get hit. And Mr. Hoover gets run out of town, and Mr. Roosevelt's put into place, and the very first thing Mr. Roosevelt does is says, okay, fine, banksters, you win. Whatever you want, I'm going to bend over here. The Vaseline's over on the table there. Try and be gentle, please. Please? Pretty please? So, since that day, we now live in this banksters world. Get used to it. If you're a South American country, 20 years ago and you said fuck you to the banksters, they might come in and actually murder you. That's how serious these people are. And I suppose, if anything, it would probably be better than me and my big mouth. I'm going to get myself assassinated. But then hopefully what ends up happening is I turn into a martyr. And maybe people will actually listen to my crazy rants after I'm dead. Maybe that would be kind of good for humanity. Anyway, the point being that this is an image from exactly the same part of the cycle 80 years ago. And notice the price inflation. So I don't think there's actually anything really going on. Nothing's really changing here. It's all the same business as usual. If anything, I get the impression that the American public couldn't handle this kind of price inflation, this kind of headline price inflation. Keep in mind, the Fed's number one job is to protect the purchasing power of the currency. So how the fuck can you come out to the public and say, well, double-digit price inflation, it's it's perfectly fine? You can't. So what do? Well, about 20 years ago, they went and changed how we calculate inflation. So technically, my hunch is if you actually saw the unadulterated inflation numbers, they are probably up in this double-digit area, and it has been this way for quite some time, which is yet another just an excellent illustration of how these criminals are basically stealing just staggering amounts of wealth. I mean, just staggering amounts of wealth. You just can't imagine the amount of wealth. just stealing it from like everyone. It's remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable. So, like I said, there is a gentleman. Why I'm going down talking about all this. There is a gentleman on the site, Zoogie Sticks, who said that there's a project coming up, and I'll even just tout it right now because I think it would be a really good idea for humanity, where we create a decentralized. The only problem is I don't know where the hell the damn chat room is. It's one of these windows, not that one. Over there. Oh. I always have to be careful. I don't pull up a window full of naked women. Start alienating people. One good thing is if you do see pictures of naked women, you'll know that yes, Brian is a red-blooded North American male. Oh, here we are, way over here. So Zoogie mentioned this. There he is, chatting away in the lounge. Yeah, we got all our. Wait, and I love popping in the lounge because what ends up happening is we end up sort of OGs will just sort of stumble in out of nowhere. So we had a crypto OG stumble in, and he's living the good life down in Mexico on the Caribbean, cocksucker. But good to see that he. It was really nice to see Spence this morning on the site. I really like that. Anyway, here it is. This. So check this out. I thought this was fascinating. And I'll even, I don't even know how I retweet this or not. But anyway, theoretically, this is a protocol that's coming out relatively soon. And Stuart, if you're watching this later on, I'd love for TRI to be able to get a chunk of this. That would be so cool. But if I understand correctly, that they are, they're going to try and create basically like a decentralized CPI, which I thought would be very, very smart. So I'm not quite sure. I mean, I'll follow him because Zug seems to like him. Not quite sure if there's like a tweet or something that I can retweet that you guys can sort of track onto or something. I would imagine also too, Stuart's probably, Stuart comes on the call on Monday, so I'll mention it to him. But I'm sure he also, I would imagine Mr. Luna, Mr. Kwan, probably has some sort of inflation proxy kind of protocol as well in his back pocket to keep an eye on. But anyway, I thought this was really fascinating. So I'm not quite sure what to tweet out or whatever, but I did want to mention that to you. I think it's really worth paying attention to. That caught my attention. I thought that was kind of cool. Okay, so the point here is breadth indicator saying that, maybe we ought to just go a bit slowly here, folks. Be well aware problems are developing. It's interesting how oil, just keeps pounding higher. And of course, a year or so ago, I'm like, well, I don't want to invest in oil. It's dirty. I want to have a date with Greta, so I don't want to invest in oil because she's going to hate me if I invest in oil. But man, these goddamn oil stocks, they've just been booming higher here. So what a surprise. Oil ETF just charging higher here. And interesting, EWC, which is the Canada ETF, it's charging higher here, and it's actually one of the more bullish proxies in our universe. Why? Because, and I don't know whether I can do this or not, but one of the biggest stocks in Canada, Imperial Oil, which of course Greta would absolutely hate. I mean, it's just going straight up here. So the oil people, they're having a massive boom. But the only problem with that is something we call the Dow theory. And that is, if you have higher and higher and higher energy prices, at some point it's going to take a bite, right? The transports are going to be like, we're not turning a profit here anymore. So maybe we should just go out of business because we're spending all our profits on fuel costs. So you can see this yellow line, and I heard Grim was trying to talk to the kids about this morning in class. You notice that this yellow line, these are comparing. Yellow line's transports, blue line is the industrials. So the industrials keep making higher highs and higher highs and higher highs. But notice this yellow line, right? Even if we just draw a horizontal line, off of that high there on the transports. Not really a new high. And you're kind of kidding yourself there. And then again, not really a new high. So there's a problem. You can see the problem is brewing. This is, and the fact that we're actually starting to M out here now, we kind of M'd out over here. I mean, we're doing some serious structural damage on the transports themselves, but just the simple fact that this thing is not going to new highs, and yet everybody's like, "Oh, look at the stock market going to new highs." We got a problem here. That's not sustainable. So you can sort of see the next sort of thumping is coming. I did find it interesting. I had some February calls on here. They're probably going to expire. I do have a bunch of these ETFs on the books. I know Kiran, he rolled his February calls into May calls. That was a smart idea on his part. But I got one more week. So let's see. The whole stock market shits its pants next week. Maybe I'm okay. But my hunch is I'm going to lose some money on these options. I suppose the one good thing is I do have a bunch of the actual units of all of these bear ETFs on the books. But man, my options trading over the past year or two, it's been tough. I'll tell you that much, by crackers. Well, live by the sword, die by the sword. Don't take too much risk on any one trade. Blah blah blah. You've heard it all 100 times before. Okay, so back to our conversation here about the breadth and what we're seeing here. It shouldn't surprise us that oil and oil-related proxies are rocking and rolling. I do find it interesting. In UK stocks, relatively okay. It's interesting how Mr. Josh was telling me here this morning. He went to sort of rural UK over the weekend, and COVID, what the fuck's that? I mean, it's almost laughable that, what a great analogy. The governments are always backwards, right? My government right now is, and the guy is like, I've said it before. I think he's a puppet of people like Klaus, and I think he's a puppet of the 1%, the oligarchs of my country. So clearly, you can see that he's just sending the political message that they want him to send. But he is so backwards. I mean, most of the European countries now are just saying, you know what? Maybe we've had enough of these lockdowns and stuff. And of course, half of the Americans are like, you're not going to fucking lock me down anyway. So suck my, you know what? And I said this repeatedly. Hats off to you fucking Americans, man. I'm so proud of you guys. You stood up to the man. I'm so proud of you. It's a nightmare in my country right now with the man. The man's completely shitting on us right now. But down in the States, hats off. At least you were able to stick it to the man a little bit. But anyway, interesting to see UK stocks fairly strong now. Canada stocks strong because of oil, but of course that's totally politically incorrect. How ironic there. XLF, that's the financials. Interesting that the financials would show so strongly here. And then finally, EWW. What's that? I think that's like Switzerland or something like that. Mexico. Oh, interesting. So interesting Mexico. Also, too, a lot of oil stocks in the Mexican index. So a lot of oil there as well. So interesting how Canada and Mexico are just rocking it now. And I guess on balance, the S&P doesn't look too bad, but I don't know. And then, let's go look at Canada. Actually, its breadth picture doesn't look nearly as bad as something like you can see, even Europe's starting to threaten to put in that top. But the S&P 500, wow, it's got that nasty top. And actually, a lot of this is the tech stocks, eh? I even heard people are falling out of love with the FANG stocks. That's incredible. I couldn't believe that when I heard that the other day. So they're probably a really good analogy that, now I'm just blabbing away here. But historically, and actually might be interesting just to do a little case study here. This doesn't bode well for crypto, by the way. But historically, they say that, how am I going to do this? Maybe I'll just go. So we'll go CL Maybe actually, you know what? Why don't we do the U.S. though? Because on that way, I don't think that one went negative. Let's see if this works. Whenever I do these studies on the fly, half the time they don't work. And then we'll go QQQ. Boom. All right. So, yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, you can see how oil is really ramping up here. Keep in mind, these are percentages, eh? So if we assume that we're both the same index level here, you can see that oil is actually dramatically underperformed. Maybe we'll even change that to a line to make it easier for you to see. Right, so blue is oil, and orange is tech. So you can see that while I suppose they kind of both moved in lockstep there and there. But you can see there's a major disconnect here. Tech really went up when oil fell out of bed here. This is actually a really good lesson. Why? And the answer is that, purchasing managers for companies, they have a choice. And, well, maybe choice isn't the right word. They have a budget and they have to spend a certain amount of money a year on budget. And if their perceived cost for energy is going down, then that means that they have money freed up in their budget to spend on other things. And these are businesses, so it's not like they're going to spend it on hookers and blow. It's tough, especially if it's a public company. It's tough to justify that on the balance sheet. So what they do is they reallocate the capital towards more profit-making sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Angles? I don't know. Ways? Tangents? So investing in technology to improve worker productivity is one way where you can improve profits. So what ends up happening is if energy is perceived to be getting cheaper, so your purchasing manager's budget is getting bigger and bigger and bigger every quarter because you're spending less and less and less on energy, well, that money gets funneled into things like tech stocks, buying software, upgrading networks, blah, 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 and that's reflected in tech stock earnings. But unfortunately, when it's perceived that the exact opposite is happening, energy prices are actually going to start rising, well, you can see the propensity for people to invest more money in technology stocks starts backing off. And remember, stocks are technically like sort of leading indicators. They're 6 to 8 months ahead of time. So this is like in real time, but the stock market is kind of perceiving, well, what's going to happen to earnings like in 6 months' time directly with the direct rise in energy prices today. So in a weird sort of way, you can kind of see that there was a bit of a battle in this area, and then we resolved bullishly. And traders, they just went, oh, shit, that's not good. And that's a big sell fail there, right? So also, too, you can sprinkle on here that rising energy prices are going to be bearish of bonds or bullish of interest rates. So you can kind of see how interest rates are also rising with that rising energy price. So you can see interest rates falling, interest rates rising. Interest rates falling, that also frees up balance sheet. Have to spend less money on debt servicing. We can spend more money on technology investment and investing in productivity to drive earnings. Does that make sense? Hope so. Also, too, look at that breakout in the damn interest rate market. That's evil. I mean, the worst part about it, and I put a tweet out a little while ago, I mean, that is a pretty chart breakout. But that's the last thing in the world any of us want to see. That is life is going to get a hell of a lot more painful and a hell of a lot more expensive going forward. Just get used to it, folks. Sucks horse cocks. And the worst part about it is that this whole move was propagated because we panicked through here and they flooded the system with too much money, and too much money started chasing too few goods. And as a result, now we've got, You guys remember, what does a world swimming in $18 gajillion look like? Well, it looks like hyperinflation. That's what the end result. Remember, we said, how did this play out with Venezuela? How did this play out with Zimbabwe? How is this playing out with Canada? If anything, the only saving grace to all of this is that the United States of America and the Fed, to a certain degree, I don't think they're going to let their gravy train go tits up. So the question here is, what country does the U.S. Federal Reserve represent? And this is probably the most important question you need to understand. Does the U.S. Federal Reserve System give a fuck about what happens outside of the U.S.'s borders? You must understand this. They don't care. I thought it was fascinating that when we had this meltdown here a little while ago, excuse all my funny drawings. Are you guys enjoying this? Was that a fun pictogram? Did anybody learn anything about all that? I hope you learned something. But when we had this event happen right here, which, at the time, oh my God, it's the end of capitalism, it's the end of the world. I thought it was fascinating down here when Chairman was being interviewed by U.S. government. He was asked by the representative of Guam and the representatives from Puerto Rico whether there would be any aid for them. And Powell flatly said no. So if you're a territory like Guam, which theoretically is a U.S. protectorate, or a territory like Puerto Rico, which to all intents and purposes is like the 51st state, you can't get any closer to statehood than Puerto Rico. If they're not going to get a fucking penny out of the Fed when the shit hits the fan, what do you think my dear leader Trudeau is facing if the shit really does hit the fan when it comes to credit? I can tell you, we're screwed. The Canadian dollar should get absolutely smoked here. The only thing, ironically enough, that's holding it up is this silly oil market that's absolutely runaway right now. And, here's the scary thing. This is super cool because this is another application of the breadth indicator. If you were looking at the medium term, and this is how I want you to sort of learn to use this, which market here should you be most concerned about a potential bubble forming? And do we invest in bubbles? Can anybody answer that question? And frankly speaking, I love this thinking because it absolutely makes perfect sense to me. Thank you, Edward. I tell you, I remember when the stock market was a buy back here. I remember when this happened. It's quite remarkable, really. All through here. This is when the stock market actually put in a buy signal. And why do I say that? Because right here, and it was so cool. We used to have a guy on the site who did videos with us on a daily basis. And he and I, we both saw this signal. It was plain as day. I mean, it was the most beautiful. It's tough to trade. Don't get me wrong. This wasn't an easy trade. But coming out of sort of 2015 into 2016, keep in mind the U.S. presidential election was over here. So in essence, this was the end of sort of Obama socialism era and the beginning, of course, of Mr. Trump's wonderfulness. And, obviously he's slightly pro-business. And how did business do with Mr. Trump in office? I think Mr. Trump and business, I think they got along quite well. I guess that was up into here, Actually, in fact, no, I guess you would even say all the way up into here. So interesting how Biden, Mr. Biden and business really haven't gotten along that well. I mean, we had a big surge up, and now it looks like we're giving all of his gains back. So that's kind of interesting. But anyway, so the point here is, why do I say that this was the buy signal right here? And the answer is on the breadth indicator, when we had it running at the time, the U.S. stock market, both the country funds and the S&P 500, and even these indexes to this degree, but this index is, there's only 3 issues in here, so it's not really working. I think I want to just take this out of here. But the S&P 500, these were heavily bearish. So on the weekly basis, and I was going through the feed trying to find it. I couldn't find the image from that, which is so cool. I mean, I'll try and see if I can find it somewhere. I do remember publishing it. And it was right around the end of 2015, beginning of 2016. That's when the buy signal was. That all of this thing, all of it was heavily red. And this was heavily red. And like literally the first buy signal that came in, that was the fucking killer buy signal. And I haven't seen a market. So I remember when that happened and we turned up here, it was the easiest thing in the world to make money with stocks. The whole damn market just fucking launched higher. The interesting thing is, look how long ago that was. That was the base off of here. I have not, in this entire period, I have not seen a signal in the stock market like that. I think we're still actually playing off of that buy signal that was generated there. And what I'm really worried about now, of course, right, you look at the breadth indicator, we're not too worried about stocks in particular. Medium term, they're not really that overbought. What I'm worried about here are the commodities, right? We're already at 69 on the medium term. So that means we are only within a whisker of this on a medium term becoming overbought. Now, you guys tell me, do you think commodities are going to push higher here into the spring? Oh, fuck me. I mean, all I hear about is people talking about commodities, bull. And oil, like actually, I can do an oil chart right now that I think is actually telling you oil wants to go to about $120 a barrel. Cocksuckers. If this works, I think I can do it like that. Is that how you do it? No. CL. I don't want to do the spot one because it's got that screwy price in, but yeah, there we go. So 2. So this is the crude. Let's just change that to regular. And let's go. What do I want to do here? How did I do this? I'm done something wrong here. I mean, maybe that's what our future looks like. Something doesn't look. Oh, that's the NASDAQ. I saw it. What a knucklehead. Sorry, everyone. Yeah, let's try this again. Boom. There we go. All right. So there's your crude oil, the 2 contract. It's interesting. Obviously we went to that absolutely insane trough there, but if you look at this 2, you can actually make the argument that actually we have not broken down there. So that means we could. I mean, this is where it gets really scary. I mean, technically, these kind of numbers are actually on the table for me. I mean, I hope we don't have to do something like this, but that's very possible. If Vladdy goes and starts a war here, yeah, this is actually very realistic. And the irony of it all is I think Vladdy's more than happy. I think he's a cold warrior. And I actually think Vladdy was actually more than happy to die in some sort of, third world war. And actually seeing what Russia has gone through over the past 30 years is probably, if you were going to define what hell would look like to a guy like Vladimir Putin growing up through the Soviet system and, becoming a KGB agent. I mean, can you imagine the shit that guy's been through in his life? How many people do you think that guy's actually murdered? I bet it's a pretty damn big number. To see Russia go through what it went through, ironically enough, was probably just absolute torture for the guy. And it was probably the definition of hell. So something like actual Armageddon, nuclear war happening. Actually, I think he would think that was what was supposed to happen in 1986 when we backed down the last time we were supposed to have a confrontation with the West over Nicaragua. So, yeah, exactly. It's just a bucket list item. It's good. Hey, there's going to be a nuclear war down the road at some point. I might as well be the guy who goes down in history as saying I'm the one who started it. Fuck, I'll be famous. They'll remember my name like fucking Julius Caesar. Well, there you go. They're not going to remember some fucking Trump punk bitch. They'll remember, or even Biden, even worse. Biden, I think Biden is going to go down as like Chamberlain, if you know who Chamberlain is. That's the impression I get out of Biden. But oh well. All right, so there's absolute hell. I get the impression just in the short term, and it's actually interesting how this contract doesn't show it. I'm not quite sure what contract I was looking at, but maybe it was just off of this. Like, just if we do foggy boggies here, boobity boom, interesting. You can make a realistic argument that the breakout here, this W here, this energy needs to see $113. And I like that because what should happen here is we're so close to $100. We're probably going to oscillate around that $100 number. That's usually what happens. And then you can see if this is actually like typical chaos, really all that is saying we're going to go up and just make new highs on the oil price. But see, here's the problem with this. Is this actually reality? And I would actually argue, no, it isn't. Reality is actually this image. So what is actually a high oil price? If you look at it in real dollar terms, where do they have to take this thing just to get back to those George Bush crony capitalism bullshit? We're going to rape the American baby boomer generation as hard as possible and just steal all their money. How high do prices actually have to go to get back to those levels? I mean, the irony of it all is we're lower now than we were through the George Bush senior days in crude oil. I mean, that's the scary part here. And then I see somebody over on YouTube, and of course this would happen, is it's funny. I know this Russian lady recently, and she's like, well, how do you know that you're telling the truth? How do you know that it isn't Mr. Putin in Russia who's telling the truth to his populace, and you in the West, you're being fed a whole bunch of lies? I mean, do you know for certain if it's one or the other? And I will tell you, and I'll tell everybody watching this video, I haven't got a fucking clue. My hunch is the truth is somewhere probably in between, that both sides are fudging shit to try and, further their cause. And it's a shit show. And if anything, that's where it gets really, really worrisome. Because at some point, somebody is going to come along and say, well, you know what? I think we can win a nuclear war. Let's give it a go. The day that happens, all of this fluffiness, and it'd be interesting to see what would happen to a Bitcoin if the entire world's computer network went down. would Bitcoin actually be worth anything if there was no more interneting? If we were living in like Road Warrior environment and there was no internet, and we were back to they're refining gasoline, just oil well by oil well, just to try and make sure that they can keep the cars running. Would a Bitcoin actually be worth anything? That's an interesting philosophical question. But anyway, so the point that I just make with this is, how high is high? Our oil prices, you see them at $80, $90 a barrel, but I'll tell you, folks, I mean, we're nowhere near what the peak in actual prices are. This is a shadow of its former self. I mean, I hate to say it, folks, but if I was going to charge you $1,000 to learn the TRI program, in 2008? Well, I mean, technically, I mean, it would just be interesting if we use that same metric. I mean, I don't know what the fraction, if we just wanted to keep the numbers the same. I mean, I don't know how I calculate that. But I think, I don't know whether you can do a percentage. Let's see, what would happen if we go like that? So 350%. So let's say, I started teaching you a course and I said, well, crude oil is $100. It's George Bush and he's so wonderful and lost another loan to Ditech and all that. Remember all the GM executives, I'm all getting rich. I would have taught this level 1 course for $1,000 then. I really would have. That technically means that this course, just to stay the same price, should be about $3,500. I hope you guys realize that. Quite shocking, really. If I was sort of valuing this in stable currency terms. So the irony of it all is as long as we keep this price as it is, the price is actually falling. So how ironic, and you don't even realize that. Yeah, that's probably, if anything, Josh, that's probably a good tweet. I mean, do you realize that by TRI trying not to shill you all, that you're actually getting a steal here? But this turns into an interesting situation. And this is where the Fed has to be really, really careful. If we get to the point where the public believes that inflation is here and there's no getting around it, then you're going to start getting a whole bunch of sort of jamming purchases through in the short term for fear that they're going to be much more expensive down the road. And that's sort of like we've talked about. Well, the central planners, they got this completely wrong, or we're actually right on course. We're exactly where we should be. I think that the public message is that we got this completely wrong, but the private message is actually, yep, we're right on course. Everything is operating exactly as we expected. And of course, if we pull this off, everybody's going to be filthy rich on the other side of this, because if they pull this off, what should happen is nope, not that one. That. Remember, Klaus is loaded up, right? Remember, Klaus says, you own nothing, I own everything. So Klaus owns everything. And if they pull this shit off, we're going to get massive price inflation. So the price of everything, you see it, fucking Bezos and his silly yacht, it's like fucking half of a country's GDP for one fucking boat. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing, really. But the rich, they're going to just keep piling on. The value of their assets are just going to go straight up. And then once everything is bid up, then, and this is the worst part about it, is Klaus will come out at that point and say, you know what, actually, it's a good thing that you own stuff. So we would highly encourage you to invest, assholes. Because what they want to do is they want to get out into the next greed cycle peak. Now, I sure hope all of you guys now have a really good appreciation for these greed and fear cycles. Because I started this whole program, remember, I was a broker through all this. I tried to convince people to, don't participate in things like Nortel and get out of technology and get out of growth and buy commodities here. And nobody would listen to me. Then as we get all the way down here and, you go ask people out in the public, will you buy growth or would you buy commodities right now? And my hunch is 90% of the public that you talk to, they're going to be like, buy gold, buy commodities. And I actually, like we showed you with that breadth indicator, I actually think that commodities are coming into their final cyclical top. The only problem is how fucking ugly is this going to get? How ugly does this have to get so that everybody and their brother, like all the David Plotney guys and all that kind of shit, all of those people are all going fucking all in, ape in, buy commodities. That's what we have to get to. Once that happens here, and we've got the big old fucking red histogram on the medium term heavily overbought, both of these are flashing overbought, it's over. It's done. And that's the end of that cycle. So you guys at TRI, you're super fortunate. Oh, by the way, did you notice? Hey, oh, something's not right here. Technically, if we get any kind of more firmness in the international country funds, this is setting up for disaster. You tell me. 90.48. Actually, you guys just in level one did oscillators today. Is 90 from an oscillator that can only go to 100? Would a 90 reading be considered overbought? That is very, very overbought. And, like we've talked about the Benner cycle, we talked about the decennial cycle, we've talked about, the Fed wanting to raise the cost of money, raise the cost of interest, which usually is a tough slog for stock markets. We showed you the Larry Williams video there weeks ago. Unfortunately, Bitcoin 4-year cycle, that peak it appears has come and gone. We had all the fluffiness. We had magic internet money. We had Novogratz putting tattoos of Lunas on his arms. So, there's a lot of people that made a lot of money through that cycle peak. So now it's business as usual. I mean, the way people were acting about those silly NFTs, how's all that going now? And then, how about dog money? People are super excited about dog money. So, put it all together. I don't really like the look of the fact that basically international equity is extremely bullish right now. So if you get commodities and equities, I suppose the final piece to the puzzle is if we see the stock market move up higher. Although with this sort of reading out of the stock market, that's pretty neutral to me. That's not really too overbought. It's not really too oversold. So I don't think it's actually the stock market that could potentially be setting up for trouble. What I think setting up for trouble, like I said, is the commodities. And that would make sense in my eyes because as soon as the Fed starts, keep in mind, Fed has not raised the interest rates yet. And they usually say 3 steps and a stumble. But as soon as they start raising interest rates, then I think the commodity market and all that sort of boominess, of the economy, those days are numbered. Sort of another analogy to sort of put that all together, especially the level oneers doing things like intra-market analysis relationships. Level 3ers, of course, do this in earnest. We study sector rotation. But if we come on here and go, what do we want? We want S&P sector ETFs. You tell me. And we just keep this nice and simple. We'll even just do it from sort of the beginning of the year. What part of the market is outperforming right now? I think it's pretty obvious, right? Energy, commodities. Where does that mean we are in the economic cycle? Right up at the top, market top. Full recovery. And why does this actually start sliding? Well, usually it's because the Fed starts raising interest rates. We might have another wave of sickness. It'll be really interesting to see. But I get the impression that the sickness story is actually yesterday's story. That's old news. I think we're just going to go back to normal, good old-fashioned economic cycle stuff. And I think the Fed at some point is going to have to raise rates. But as long as they keep not raising rates, then they're just going to keep fucking orgying into these goddamn commodities. Then, of course, add insult to injury, we got the war and all that kind of stuff potentially happening. So, put it all together. I'd be a little bit careful here if I were you. If I was a risk taker in the market, oops, risk takers in the market, stocks are just all over the place. And of course, our January barometer also said, look out. We're almost through that Winter Olympics. So once the Winter Olympics is over, then China doesn't have any reason to play nice with the world. I think, of course, that Russia is just trying to be a distraction until China is ready to attack. And of course, April 4th, there we said is all about water and some sort of water event. And I wonder whether those ships, those American ships in the South China Sea, could turn into like sitting ducks. Well, we'll see how it goes. Kind of a fun conversation with you guys about the dashboard, trying to connect dashboard kind of thinking with breadth kind of thinking, with sort of, bigger picture kind of thinking. I suppose, has the level 1 class, have they finished yet? Let's see. All right, you guys are done. So, were there any questions that I should answer here today? Anybody see that document floating around? Andre, I would say Pearl Harbor was what you saw happen with the insurrection. I think that's the same catalyst event. All right. All right. Let's see down here, right? Somewhere down in all this. I know somebody said to me that I skipped a whole bunch of questions, so my apologies. Certainly didn't do it on purpose. I'll try and, oh geez, yeah, it looks like you got a bunch of questions here for me. So let's just try and go through these, and then I'll try and go back and see if there's something that I missed. So, hey, Brian, could you please talk about the Korean barbecue? How is it going, and what do you think about CLAS? Just sitting there picking its nose. If anything, really good example. Notice what comes up next on the economic cycle. So right now we're dominated by energy. And, here's like Bezos and Facebook's and Microsoft's way over there. It's not their part of the cycle. But look what's coming up next. So if the Fed actually starts raising interest rates, then that actually is when our part of the market comes back. So actually seeing CLAS right here, it's perfect. Makes perfect sense to me. Remember, so Korean barbecue, really simply put, is I'm going to take I think I took 5 G's. And we picked the stock, and we just said we want to get paid on the stock. I mean, really, there's not much going on. You can see our cost basis is. You can see how high this thing, on a split adjusted basis is. I mean, way over here. It's ridiculous. They rolled the stock back here. You can see this was sort of a shell of a stock. And this is what they call block trading. So you can see when they rolled the stock back, it sort of became free trading again. Into the end of the year, massive tax loss selling, exactly what's supposed to happen with these VCIM names. The one thing that this company did that I didn't like was they went into debt. What? The whole point about VCIM is you're supposed to pay down debt with stock in the company after it's been reorged, i.e. there's value in the stock, so people want the stock. They didn't have any debt beforehand, but they wanted to do some work on this. I don't know whether it's a patent that they have, but they have exclusive right to use technology, nitrous oxide, in the treatment of things like COVID, and also in various different sort of one in particular that caught my interest was infants. They have a mortality rate that's fairly high due to, I think it's like high pressure or something like that in the blood, and this was a treatment that they thought might work well for them. Blah 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 blah. The companies, they're just doing their thing. The one thing I didn't like about this was that to finance the research, they created a convertible debt offering, i.e., they went into debt. Now, remember, I said companies that I like, they don't have any debt. So I think that's one of the main reasons why this thing has just not done anything yet, is that they're raised money, and if the idea works, then the stock will start going up. But because they did the deal as a convertible debt deal, and they would like, obviously, the person who loaned them the money to convert the debt into equity, we're not going to find out that actually it's a winner unless we actually see the stock price move up and the convertible debt people actually convert their stock, the debt, into stock. So it's going to make it a little bit more difficult down the road. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But at the same time, too, there's nothing that's changed here. Simple technical analyst, there's the 52-week low, and yeah, it's ugly. That's exactly what happens when they rip these things a new a-hole. These are all the old shareholders selling into the end of the year. And basically what I did was I just put myself on a dollar cost average and just saying buying, 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 buying. And you can see I even bought a bit more recently. And you can see actually where my cost basis is. You can see where TRI's cost basis is. Do I feel like going and adding more to the name? No, because I've hit my 5% risk threshold. In this particular case, we just earmarked 5Gs. So 5Gs, we've hit the buy level. So now we just got to let our money work for us. And, if the technology is any good, great. This thing will do its thing. It's interesting how it's taken sort of, we got to get through the whole economic cycle where people are not really that interested in healthcare stocks right now. In fact, some of the healthcare stocks like Johnson & Johnson, they're actually getting taken apart right now. Half of the reason why, because it turns out their vaccine kind of sucks, but it's not their part of the cycle. So my hunch is when it is back to their part of the cycle, you'll start to see stuff like this again. But right now, I wouldn't look for anything out of Johnson & Johnson right now. And if those guys aren't pointing up, then it makes me awfully tough to be like pounding the table bull on something like CLAS. I mean, it's just sitting there picking its nose. The question ultimately here, and this is where I think a lot of you people need to learn that, and just out of curiosity, let's see whether, I don't know who it was who asked this question. Is the person, did they put their name here? What would a typical investment firm investment time horizon be for something like this kind of investment to the retail public? Anybody have any idea? If I was Goldman Sachs and I said, buy this name and you think we'll make money, what is the typical time horizon? And I got to tell you guys, it's exactly the same. Nothing's changed here. And I've only been in this thing like 6 months. That's nothing. None of you know? Edward, let's see whether you know the answer to this. If Goldman Sachs was going to do a write-up that we recommend buying this Claritas Pharmaceuticals, what is the window that they are going to tell you that they expect this investment to perform in? And the person who asked this question, why? And I would like you guys to be able to put your names here, please. So then that way I can speak to you directly. I guess Francis, is this the person who asked this question? So what I would just say here is the answer is 3 to 5 years. 3 to 5 years. I'm not thinking 3 to 5 years, but that's what you have to think. And remember the Bitcoin story. Goldman Sachs came out and told their clients to buy Bitcoin at $1,100 a coin. And it promptly went all the way back to 150. But within 3 to 5 years that you'd bought it at $1,100 a coin, you did very, very well. So that's basically the same logic here. And I've told all of you guys, if you can't handle the heat of this kind of investing, do not do it. Do not do it. Do not do it. Do not do it. Now, what's my expectation? Well, believe it or not, my expectation is they'll probably come out with some sort of news. I mean, they're working away. They got the financing, so they got the money. I think the technology is relatively attractive. So my hunch is probably, how does the expression go? Buy when it what? Who can finish that sentence? Buy when it what? Buy when it what? Thank you, Edward. Sounds like you got it. Buy when it, how about anybody over on YouTube? Buy when it what? Buy when it, when the weather's crying? I guess in Vancouver it could be crying. Anyway, over on YouTube, looking for snows. I don't know whether you guys are delayed, so maybe you don't hear me for another 5 minutes. I get the impression YouTube's going to put me on a very long delay just to make sure if I say something completely outlandish, they have enough time to edit it. No, I wouldn't take that approach, Andre. Remember, Brian's usually right, but Brian's usually early. And if anything, this is a really good example. I'm probably early. But is there money to be made on the upside? Look at that gap up there at $1.15. That's where whatsoever. Do I need the money right now? No. Money's actually sitting in sheltered accounts, just sitting there doing nothing. So I either haven't invested in this or I haven't invested in T-bills. I don't mind having my money sitting working in this thing. But am I in a hurry here? Not whatsoever. The cliche goes, of course, buy when it snows, sell when it goes. So my anticipation is probably somewhere, maybe somewhere up in this area. That's probably when you get your rally. And it might not even be that great. Maybe in the short term, we rally up into here. That wouldn't surprise me. So, if anything, the way I look at it here is anybody who did take this trade but had the patience and discipline not to freak out, and they sort of learned the process, this will give you your opportunity to hop off at scratch, get the fuck out, don't buy this shit ever again. For a guy like me, I'm not in any hurry. I couldn't care. This thing could come up here. It could do something like this, sit there for the next year or two, and then go. Totally fine by me. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. So, am I in a hurry here? No. Is there any change to my plan here? No. Do I have any plans to buy any more? No. What am I doing? Just sitting here picking my nose. My money is working away for me. And that would be my report. Is this the only stock that I have in my Korean barbecue plan? No. I also committed to this guy in my Korean barbecue plan. So he's another member just sitting there working away. And I'm looking for a big pop here. Am I in a big hurry? No. I also picked up this one just through Christmas. This was a great little one. I didn't get 5G's worth of it, but I certainly love the look of this bad boy. Look at that guy. Could I look to do a 10x on that? Sure. Do I need to? No, not really. Am I in a hurry to do anything here? No. Also did a Korean this was an interesting one because this one, it was pitched to me like there was a key reversal, low shares out. I think I'm going to look at this one like a Korean barbecue plant stock. Look at the size of that gap way up there. That's at like $7. So I bought some around $1. Am I really in a hurry to do anything here? No, not really. Do I think down the road the market's going to go up and fill in that gap at 230? And really, I would argue play around with those highs, which would give me a 3x, which is what I do on these Korean barbecue trades. And it seems realistic. It doesn't seem outlandish. Is there any bottom here at all right now? No. But both of these are pharma names. Pharma's not in the spotlight. You all saw it's oil's time in the sun and commodities. So these things are just sitting there picking their noses. Tell you, this is a stock that I really like. I'm thinking about doing a Korean barbecue plan on this one. It's another copper name. Man, I've got a bunch of these copper names that I think like this AGL. He's a copper name. I got into him. I haven't gotten into this Coco yet because he's got a sexy little gap right here. But I'm thinking about doing a Korean barbecue trade on this one because I tell you, that's good looking. And if this thing is a bottom and that's for real, then if I can sneak in anywhere between 10 and 15 cents, I think I can see a better part of 30 cents. And if we're really lucky, nice little pop up into the 40s, maybe, sometime when people are actually feeling positive about the economy again. And that's got a really good structure to it. That was one of Joe Z's names. Really like the look of that one. So there's your Korean barbecue update. And if anything, perfectly good to ask. I want to keep abreast on it. While the market's kind of floundering around here, there's no hurry whatsoever. I am long. I haven't sold a share, not even the slightest bit interested in selling anything. And when the market goes, it'll go. And you know me, I'll be on the sell side, selling halves at doubles, triples, quadruples, per the plan. All right. For the record, am I underwater on the investment? Yes, I am. I have a paper loss working right now. So for the record, full disclosure, yes, I'm underwater. All right. Level 1, week 2, course material claims that money never vanishes. Does this money include what many mistakenly think as money, i.e. credit, which can be created, destroyed by central banks? If so, is it really fair to say that money never vanishes? Whereas, in fact, it does, at least credit. And such credit contraction historically has devastated effects on asset prices. Most importantly, in the event of a credit contraction, where does the remaining money tend to seek shelter? So, what happens to an economy if the credit bubble can be given permission to deflate and all the people that borrowed money get forced into bankruptcy and those bad loans have to get written off? That is this. So my money is neither created nor destroyed. Or we should say capital is neither created nor destroyed. And all things being equal, stocks are nothing more than growth vehicles. So as the economy is growing, keep in mind they pay dividends. So theoretically, they're actually paying out a lot of the profits. So as the economy is growing, stock prices go up. But then as the economy contracts and, that money is neither created nor destroyed, but the credit bubble that's created here gets deflated and all the companies that borrowed money that can't pay it back go and get forced into bankruptcy, then the economy unwinds. The purchasing power of the currency stays stable and it's just a big reset. Money is neither created nor destroyed. It just sloshes. Too much credit, credit's taken away. Simple as that. Currency value stays stable. Problem here is, at this point, the U.S. government, trying to spurn some sort of bottom, gave into the banksters and said, you know what, we're not going to do this to you anymore. You just print money when you need it. So they printed a whole bunch of money. They put the bad debts, whatever were left, onto the government's balance sheet, injected that money into the economy, and that started the next wave. So we get to this point up here, and this is what should happen. The economy should unwind. But since the banksters own this, and the banksters own all the paper now, they're not going to let that happen. What they do is, in this particular case, they sacrifice the purchasing power of the currency, i.e., Americans come off the gold standard. The value of the currency, they're going to keep this stock market thing up. Just keep in mind, the stock market should go basically right back to where it started, because all this is economy is growing, economy is shrinking. Zero-sum game, Capital is neither created nor destroyed. But something went wrong here. What changed? Well, they got rid of the gold standard. So this number that you're quoting these things in, this is a fugazi. Then we come to the next cycle. And what's really bothersome about this cycle is just as we are getting ready to leave the contraction phase, the banksters go and convince the politician that's just recently elected here that we should go and create deficit spending. Governments not only need to leave the gold standard and to sacrifice currency, but now we're going to institutionalize that governments will always run deficits. And so as a result, that's massive money printing. What happens to the economy? It massively inflates when it didn't really need this help. So then we get to this fear cycle, and now you can see everything is completely abandoned. There is no more what goes up must come down, right? This is what normal should be. This is risk assets. What goes up? Gravity should come down, zero-sum game. We don't even live even remotely in that world anymore. The only reason why this keeps going up and up and up and up and up is because they are diluting it. And in reality, if you take away the money printing, there's your this goes up, this must come right back down. Nothing's really changed here. Why do the stock indexes look like this? That's because they've sacrificed this thing over here, the purchasing currency, the thing that you buy these stocks in. That is what's going down in value. But of course, the public doesn't see that, i.e., this is the crime of the millennium. It's an absolutely stunning crime that they've all pulled off here. And nobody seems to be complaining, which is shocking. It's remarkable how big the historical crime is. So I don't know whether you can wrap your head around that. I hope I've helped you understand this. I mean, this is such a big crime that it's so big that it's even bigger than the authorities, quote unquote. It's bigger than they are. So how would they? The authorities are part of the problem. And, anytime any democratically elected politician goes, well, you know what, maybe we shouldn't do that, the fucking banksters take a pop at him. I mean, it happened with Reagan. That changed his tone real quick. Oh, yeah, you can deficit spend all you want. That's a good idea. It's so sad. I mean, it's really tragic. Well, Andre says they don't teach this in college. What, like the American doctor industry, who created these colleges of physicians around the country, around even the United States? What is this thing called medical school? Well, actually, if you look into the history of it, all these medical schools they were all financed by the drug companies, the pharmaceutical companies. And who are the drug companies? They are the chemical industry. I mean, one of the most popular antidepressants that psychiatrists use today in the 1970s, it was a diet pill that you used to buy just at the corner grocery store. So what is education? The whole education system is a fraud as far as I'm concerned. And ironically enough, one of the only true things in our society right now, the representative for the banking cartel, Mr. Joey Diamond himself, went on Oprah Winfrey and all those silly daytime shows with his silly little sling and calls Bitcoin a fraud. And yet the irony of it all is Bitcoin's probably one of the only real things in our whole world. I mean, isn't that tragic? So sad. So, I mean, how do you explain that the whole fucking world's a mess and that we're the only people that are actually, seeing the real picture? And then somebody says, this video feed's going to get mysteriously cut off shortly here. Oh, goodness. Oh, well, number 3, let's see what we got here. On the sector breadth indicator, what are the definitions of short-term and medium-term? Yeah. I've been sort of thinking about this a bit. To be perfectly honest with you guys, I don't know whether I really even want to go into too much detail about how all this works. I know it works, and it is my life's work. I know the signals are the shit. The great part about it, so when we first built this site, a lot of it was sort of like, okay, Brian, teach us, how you approach the market. Brian, teach us, your history, your experience. And I was like, okay, so I'll teach you how I taught myself and all that kind of stuff. But Julian, for instance, he's had a couple tools that he likes to use, and he's kind of like, I don't know whether I really want to teach you how to use this. If you want to use it, great. If you don't, no big deal. All I'm going to say is, Josh here, half of our job is just, well, not half, probably 90% of our job is to just try and do stuff that works and less that doesn't. Do I really have any great moral necessity here to teach you step by step by step by step, individually, specifically, how you use this to make money so that you can all run out and just replicate it and do it on your own and fuck Brian over? Just keep in mind, this is my life's work here. I'm kind of leaning towards fuck you. I'm not going to let you do that to me. I don't mind, teaching you how to build a trading plan. I don't mind teaching you how to interpret things like relative strength index and, what goes into a half decent trade. That's fine. But I'm getting the feeling that, honestly, I don't even really care to teach you how this works. If you want to use it, great, awesome. I know it's going to work, and it's going to work. It is working. It's doing exactly what it's doing. I'll sort of tell you how I'm going to use the tool and, what are sort of the ways that I would apply the signal in the messaging system. But I don't know whether I really want to go into too much into specifically teaching you exactly how we build these things. Because frankly speaking, I'm actually pretty darn disappointed in the human species. I came at this completely open book, and I've seen repeatedly people, you humans, basically just borrowing concepts that I use, and maybe subconsciously you go, oh, I never really meant to screw Brian over. But listening to you actually talk, you make no acknowledgement to the fact that I taught you any of this stuff. Maybe in another video there is, but when I'm watching it, I don't hear any reference to Brian. So I'm getting to the point now where I don't know whether I really even have that great of a motivation to really teach you how I build these. All I'm going to say is, if you see medium and short term overbought and oversold in conjunction, you better pay attention, because something big's about to happen. But to specifically go into, this is step by step how we build these and how we put all this together, I don't know. I'm kind of thinking like I'm not going to bother. I don't think I really want to teach you, because frankly, you're just going to steal it. And maybe that's not the person who's answering or asking this question. But if anything, this is such a great analogy that all it takes is one or two bad actors to really fuck up the world. And I think at a big part of this to begin with was I felt very indebted. The fact that my wife sacrificed her life for Liam and I, and actually, I honestly think to a certain degree that's what she did. And I had a debt with the universe, and I really needed to pay that debt back. And like I said, I gave everybody my entire soul over the past 8 years. I've been an absolute open book. And to a certain degree, now that we've got this thing built here and it's working and it's doing what I expected, I mean, I think, I'm just going to leave it up to Josh. Josh is going to show you how incredibly valuable this tool is and how you can make a lot of money using it day in, day out. But to specifically go into, okay, this is how you build this and this is how you do this and that. No, I don't think I'm really going to do that, to be honest with you. It'll be interesting to see how this develops over time. And also, too, remember, I am not in any hurry whatsoever. There's no hurry. I wanted to get the dashboard, just the basic dashboard framework, so that I could talk to the audience about these signals and about what I'm seeing in the market. But I'm going to be using this to trade my own money. I mean, that's half the reason why I got Sjord to build this. It's because I used to use it to trade my own money. And I also think this is going to be an incredible subscription service for TRI. Is it predicated on giving you the knowledge that you have the ability to go and copy this and do it yourself? No, it's not predicated on that whatsoever. So I don't know. I'm a bit leery about going into too much detail about how this is built. So I'd rather be honest and open with you and tell you that all I'm going to simply say is, in the level 1 course, you are taught to use intermarket analysis relationships to help you make decisions in the market. And the breadth you can clearly see, and all of you guys, I even put tweets out warning you that, hey, be careful here. Maybe about a week or two ago. And sure enough, the market is breaking down. And it is a beautiful example of intermarket analysis relationships. And can you use this to help you make better trading decisions? I absolutely think so, without a shadow of a doubt. Am I going to tell you how to build it and replicate it and basically you copy what my life's work is? Fuck you. Simple as that. So there you go. Hope you love that answer. All right, number 4. I have subscribed to December 2021 to the dashboard, but I really don't know how to use it. Well, my suggestion to you is just go slow and steady and just watch. Maybe take 20 paper trades off of a dashboard signal to the point where you go, just exactly like Josh did. I thought this was hilarious. Josh put this out. And both he and I were like, holy shit, seriously? Like, didn't you think that, Josh, when you sort of look back and you went, no, this can't be right? I know I did. When I looked at it, I go, this can't be this easy. There's no way this can be this easy. I don't know if Josh is here or not. But when I saw that, I was impressed. So my suggestion to you is if you've gone and subscribed for it and you're relatively new to trading, and my suggestion to you is just get in there and start paper trading it and have some fun with the tool. It works really awesome. Will I be doing videos and sort of walkthroughs of, hey, when this happens, check out that, or when that happens, check out this? Sure, absolutely. Am I in a huge hurry? No, not really. I mean, if you want to make money from trading, I would just simply say, wait for this goddamn thing to start Wing out and crossing back to the bull side. It's just that simple. And I'll tell you, you just do that and just take trades when you see this darn thing's Wing out and breaking out higher. You're going to make yourself that. What did we charge? Like $200 or something for the whole year? You'll make that $200 in about 10 minutes. You go and you start forcing trades up here and buying, and you're going to get your ass kicked. And hopefully you're going to learn real quickly, when the indicator looks like this, don't touch it. And that should save you a couple $100 if you're thinking about buying something. So to get the value of that $200 value over the next year, whoever you are, I think your name's, what is it? Is this? I don't see your name, but whoever you are, put your name down. I will bark at you specifically. Hey, here's your chance to make your $200. The market breadth indicator is telling you it's time for us to get uber bullish. Okay, so 100 more than what I could see in different DBs. Is it possible to make at least a short? Yeah, I will, but I'm not really in a huge hurry. I'm letting the thing sort of breathe for a few months, give us lots of signals. I mean, hell, I could do a video just off of this. I mean, it's just that simple. I mean, I could do a half-hour walkthrough video just on that screen alone. So just look at Josh. Follow Josh. Good part about it is Josh is a good marketer. I'm a fucking gnarly old trader. Fuck you, right? That's Brian. Uh, I don't. I've lost the zest for the marketing dream. Josh is right in there, and I think David Eisner. I think now he's starting to go, holy shit, this thing's kick ass. Because I don't know whether you saw Josh. David wants a meeting ASAP. so, um, so it's coming. It's coming down the pike. Right? And my suggestion with you is just get in there and paper trade. Just go, okay, well, this thing crossed bullishly. I'm going to buy one. Let's see what happens. Right? Okay, well, oh, wow, well, look at that. Okay, now it crossed over negative. Okay, well, I'll sell it. Okay, now it crossed back over positive. Now I'll buy it. Wow, look at that huge jump. Now, why did that jump the way that it did? Oh, well, I noticed that when the trending medium term is sloping upward and you get those buy signals, wow, price can just take off like a rocket. You know, that's the kind of stuff that you're going to have to journal. You have to get in there and journal this stuff and see what's going on. Right? And I can sit there with tutorials and go, yeah, when this happens, do that. But the only way you're going to really learn how to use this is you got to get in the trenches and you got to use the tool on a daily basis. And, you know, for whatever it's worth, you know, this one tool right here, I would say is probably worth maybe $1,000, $2,000 a year subscription. These damn Q reversals, because you can't find this anywhere else. You know, big daily bullish Q reversals kind of stuff. Look at this. I am gold. Should we be getting interested in gold stocks? Oh, Jesus, look at that. Goddamn. Look at the indicator. I mean, talk about shooting fish in a barrel. I mean, like that's and that's just one signal, and that's not even part of the breadth. This is Brian's crazy signals. So you're definitely going to get value for the $200 spent. Don't get me wrong, and just be patient. We'll build out all the tutorials and stuff as we go. So somebody already, there you go. That's awesome. Chris, did you do that? Smart response. Okay, from level 1 QA doc, could you please talk about your multi-time frame algorithm for looking at markets, which is summarized in the dashboard? All right, so actually, we had a fun script that we were passing around the site a while ago, and it was the "I want to be a day trader" script. I don't know whether I still have it. I'm sure I do. It's weird how we've just sort of been going, kind of like on autopilot for the past year or so. I haven't even really been following at algos and scripts. I think it should be in here somewhere. Three thumbs might be it. Oh, darn. I thought I had the "I want to be a day trader" script handy. I don't see it. Anyway, it was a project that we did, I guess, a couple of years ago. That's why I thought it was up here. And all it did was it just asked if three different time frames were all pointing in the same direction. It was a very handy little script. Anyway, I was kind of hoping I could show you that. If anybody on the site, Sharktoshi, if you're watching later on, if you can post your, I think he's got a really, really good one. It's I want to be a day trader, sort of just a really simple script. It's just a really simple script. Fortunately, though, I can't remember where the hell I put it. Thought I had it in here. Anyway, all it did was actually, maybe, you know what, might be, let's try another route. Let's go. Did I just, where's that? That's over there. Actually, I probably have to wind this up soon. I think I'm probably going to have to do the rest of the class questions through the week like I did before, which sucks. Sorry, everyone. Talk way too much. Oh, fuck. Does that ever look dangerous, eh? Wow. Holy Shiite Muslim. Well, get ready, everybody. I mean, I've sat here and barked to you about this breadth indicator, so you all know how I'm slightly concerned. So, and of course, check out my tweets and stuff. After this football game is over, I'd be very, very careful. And also, too, after the Chinese Olympics are done. Ugh, very, very careful. So, you should look at that image and go, gee whiz, I better not buy anything. This looks very, very dangerous. And if this starts to slope down, you can see on the crypto universe, it already is starting to slope down. So if it starts sloping down in earnest, then that means that if we get like a counter trend rally and then a quick sell signal, that would actually translate into a really powerful signal. So just be careful here, everybody. Very, very dangerous market. But unfortunately, I can't show you that I want to be a day trader. Maybe somebody, Sharktoshi, maybe you can find that for me. Because Sharktoshi, he usually watches these and posted in the lounge, the script. And I'll answer this question tomorrow. But in essence, what this, basically the premise here is that we really want to focus in on trades that are trending all on the same time frame. So, unfortunately with crypto, it's going to probably mean a lot of sort of bear setups because the higher time frame charts are rolling over bearish. And the dashboard, actually this indicator itself, the DI index, again, actually in the level 2 program, we give you a trading view equivalent of this, which is Pine Script over on trading view. The one problem they had though is putting all of the different time frames together into an indicator that was really handy and cohesive to use. And Sjord, he's actually been able to put all 3 different time frames. So we look at the daily DI, the weekly DI, and the monthly DI to create this cumulative DI index. And then, of course, we run moving averages off of it. So this is, in real time, that cumulative multiple time frame look at the technical indicators. That's why I like it so much, because it's not just one technical indicator. Technically, it's 6 different technical indicators, 3 different price momentum indicators, 3 different volume momentum indicators to create an index. And then there's 15 screening tools because we have multiple different moving averages, multiple moving averages of volume tools, moving averages of price analysis tools. So 15 different signals off of 3 different time frames. So this yellow line is actually like 45 different signals all in one line. And then the moving averages done off of them work very, very well. So what a surprise. We got a big fat W coming on here. And what chart pattern is that? That's what's called a key reversal. And as I said, just the key reversal signal in itself is worth a hell of a lot of money and probably worth the price of a subscription unto itself. And I might just say, Stuart loves to say this, actually teaching people TA nowadays is really easy. All I just simply say is, okay, well, show me the highs. Whoops, what the hell happened there? Okay, what kind of? Oh yeah, okay. So show me the highs, right? Boobity boo and boobity boo, and show me a W on the other side of that trend line. So here you've got a nice momentum breakout. In fact, actually, there's W down there. Beautiful indicator breakout. The only thing that's missing is probably a little bit of consolidation here, right? And get the moving average to turn back above the slow. That's the only thing that's missing out of this trade. The interesting thing about the key reversal, though, and it's often the case of the markets, is if fucking all hell breaks loose and Putin's doing his things over there and all and bullets start flying, you might find that this thing just takes off like a rocket. So the key reversal signal, in essence, it comes in on a trade one tick above that high. So this might be a really fast signal that's coming in here. But the point here is, like somebody, I want to make a couple $100, this subscription. Well, this is what the shit is. That's what you want to focus in on. You could, one tick trade up through here. This thing might jump $5 or not $5, maybe 50 cents or something like that. And you can make that $200 from your subscription really fast. So definitely a lot of money to be made with this tool. I mean, just incredible amount of money. So super excited. Okay, it's getting after 1 o'clock. I hate being late for Liam, and I still have to go get pretty. So I think I'm going to wind up the conversation there. We'll jump right in. So we'll put Brian left off. Yeah, so we'll just say left off. So after Short is done tomorrow, we'll pick up and continue answering the questions there. So anyway, don't look at, it's not that many. It's only 3. So should be able to finish that pretty easily tomorrow. And then I'll go back and could the person who said that I didn't answer your question, can you go back and just like bold your question on here so I know I can just quickly sort through this, or maybe even like change the font size or something like that. Like maybe this is it right here. But just bold it so that when I do quickly surf through this tomorrow while doing the daily brief, I can see your questions that I forgot to answer. All right. Why don't we leave it at that? I'm going to go get pretty for Liam. So everybody give me a big karmic wave. All right, Carlo. Good. Give me a big karmic wave, positive wave of energy for Liam. I don't know what it is about him, but man, he loves, of late, he's been very agreeable after I ask you guys to do that. So there's something works there. And maybe, hopefully, I've made a positive difference in somebody's life here today. Watching this video, maybe you learned something. Maybe you heard something here today that you never heard before. And that might spurn some sort of research, and you go down and you uncover other, things that you're like, wow, this is so cool. That's the whole point of this exercise. Really, honestly, trying to make a positive difference in this world. It's going to be a slog here. Be very careful. If you are Big Brother and you are sitting listening to this, no matter what level of whatever government you're in, just reach out to your leaders and say, do we really need to have this war now? Does it have to happen? Maybe just cool your jets, everybody on both sides, and understand that, these damn planets, when they go into these conjuncts, our human emotions get really screwed up. So, try, if anything, over the next month or two, go out of your way to try and help somebody else, because I can absolutely guarantee you that all of the other uninformed humans on this planet, they're going to be fucking running around like chickens without heads. And if anything, we got to take a little bit of leadership here and go, hey, the sun will rise tomorrow. Don't stress. We'll get through this. It's not that big of a deal. All right. Thank you so much, Chris, for being a total awesome support. Thank you to all our viewers. Thank you, of course, to Josh and his marketing efforts and trying to articulate the TRI message on Twitter. I think he's doing such a great job. Thank you to Sjord for being the CTO and building this DI tool, bringing Brian into the 21st century. Thank you, Graham. Did a great job with the level oneers this morning, talking them through. material and being super patient. Of course, thank you, Kiran. Marat, great level 2 class yesterday, or I guess Friday. Zach coming along as a boss instructor for level 3. Ray, where are you? We want to get you trained up for TA work. So it's options time, Slick. We got to get you in the classes. Thank you, Julian, for being excellent quarterback, trying to keep everything all sort of humming along on the business side of the business. I'm very impressed with his chief operating officer role at TRI. I'm over the top impressed with that. He's sort of quarterbacking customer service, and I don't see anybody bitching at me, which is usually a good sign. That means that the customer service is going well. So hats off to Julian, and we'll get him drawing price channels correctly one of these days. If anything, what I love is everybody on this site reaches out to Julian, tries to help him with his TA. So that's good. Let's just, if anything, what we really need to do is remember our role in society. Hopefully we're demonstrators of best practices. Hopefully I can eat my own fucking cooking and try and be a demonstrator of best practices and a demonstrator of good behavior in our society. I tell you, it's awfully stressful around here in BC these days. So good luck to everybody on that front. Hopefully I've said my 3 appreciations. Appreciations, acknowledgements, thank yous. And to anybody who has helped me on the site that I've missed, my apologies. I'll get you next time. But have yourselves a fantastic rest of your day, everybody. PMA for the win. Slow and steady wins the race. Don't take no wooden nickels. And Chris, if you could take us on out of here. The only thing left for good old Brian to say at this point is a big bye for now.